Okay, this video is going to smash through some of the assessment stuff and some of sort of the practices and norms that you need to know while submitting assessments at university. This is not the most riveting content on the face of the earth, but we're going to smash through it pretty quickly. And although you're going to know some of this already and some of it's going to be obvious, there's going to be bits and pieces in here that you got to get right because the consequences to some of this can be pretty dire. So we'll kick on pretty quickly. Highlighting a few different types of assessments at university to begin with, starting with stock standard things like quizzes. We do quizzes at university, often face-to-face inside of your regular scheduled classrooms or maybe in your lectures, and sometimes they are also done online. So Canvas, there's a video about what Canvas is somewhere in this playlist, is our online learning management software, and we can upload quizzes into there for you to go and do. It's going to be a pretty common thing, particularly in the whole post-lockdown world, lots of online quizzes, lots of face-to-face quizzes as well. We also have exams, basically big versions of quizzes, but exams are a little bit more formal. When we use the word exam at university, often this means it's gone to our examination panel and it's just run in a much more formal and rigorous way than a quiz is run. Same deal, some of them face-to-face in the exam period. It comes after semester, so you'll do a 12-week semester, get 1 week of study in week 13, and then a 3-week exam period starts. All your exams will be in there if you have them, and they may be face-to-face or they may be online. Bit of a mix, different courses, different rules. And then you'll have assignments. This is the other pretty stock standard thing that you've probably done 1,000 times before. Different assignments generally will have an online submission through Canvas. You'll upload your documents into there. Sometimes we'll also have a hard copy submission where you have something you have to physically print out and hand in inside of a classroom. Depends on the course. Some of your assignments will be group, some will be individual. This is probably the most common thing that gets students in trouble is misunderstanding when something is group or assignment, because you'll often do a group experiment or project or something and then write individual assignments based on that. And that's a distinction you've got to be real careful with. Then we get to some of the, less typical ones, but they're becoming more and more common. In-class assessments or in-class exercises. So I use these, MEC 1110 uses these. We call them portfolios or milestones or something where every week you have to demonstrate some level of competence. So you have to come into class and show us that you've done a thing. And you get ticked off and you get marked for essentially doing that. Maths also runs like micro-assessment quizzes inside of every one of their weekly classes. So basically you show up, you do the thing that you were supposed to do either over that week or in that 2-hour period, and you get some marks for it. Another one is workshop competency. Some courses will put you in a physical workshop, give you some tools, get you to build something, and you have to prove that you are competent with the tools. So that's another in-class exercise that you have to do. Some courses like Surveying 1200 have field work, for example, and you have to go and attend and you get to do some cool surveying stuff and actually get some field work practice in. Again, a thing that can be assessed. And probably finally the last one that's pretty obvious but should still be mentioned, demonstrations and presentations. Again, you'll do this in 1500 with me, build a thing and then stand up in front of the class or some industry partners or whatever and demonstrate your device physically working and give a short 2-minute presentation on it. And all of these things are different styles of assessment. There are others as well, but these are kind of the heavy hitters that you're going to see first year, first semester. Just kind of who I'm tailoring this to. Now, I've kind of mentioned this a few times, I'll mention it again, this varies course to course, all right? Course coordinators who run different subjects get an enormous amount of flexibility on the way that they wish to assess their students based on the content that they're teaching them and the styles that they are teaching in. Whilst you may have gone through high school where assessments were heavily regimented and rigid in that they always had the same sort of format, that doesn't necessarily exist here and they can be scattergunned all over the place. So the main thing to take out of this is just because it was okay in this subject over here doesn't mean that it necessarily runs the same in this subject here. So you've got to be on top of these things. And it can even vary so within one subject. So I run 2 quizzes in my course. The first one's this super open, super easy, chill as thing that you can take as many times as you want. And you've got 2 weeks to do it, and then the other one's like a genuine, you've got 2 hours, get this done, single submission, no backtracking thing. It varies, stay on top of these things. You don't want to get caught on the wrong side of that. There is also a lot of very specific things you'll have to do in some courses when you are submitting them or completing them. This has kind of fallen out of putting a bunch of things that used to be face-to-face into an online environment, and we've had to adapt particular things, and different people have adapted content in different ways. And so there is different rules around, okay, in this particular quiz it might be totally open book, in this other quiz you might only be able to look at some things and not other things, or there might be a timer or not a timer, or all sorts of different things. So be aware of some specific completion or submission instructions. The other one, particularly for me, is scale. I've got somewhere between 500 and 1,000 students in my course. And when you submit assignments, they then get distributed to a whole bunch of markers, and then distributed to a whole bunch of moderators, and then distributed through me back to you. And this is a mangled system, so there's a whole bunch of things that I need you to put into an assignment, but you may not understand why they're there. It doesn't matter. Do them, because there's some cog in a machine 3 steps away in the huge scale process that needs to turn. So just try and be aware wherever you can of these types of things. If you're unsure, hit us up, ask. We're always better to know before a quiz or an assessment is due, so we can get those things out of the way. Cool. Submission dates and rules are, number one, if it's late, it's late. All right. So this is like a big deal for particularly me, but a whole bunch of your different subjects. If it's an online submission particularly, or if it's a quiz or anything like that, if it's late, it's late. There's no wiggle room. There's no ambiguity. There's no nothing. It's on time or it's not. And that's on you. Okay. It's on you to make sure you get everything in. And the things that sort of trip people up is stuff like maybe it actually takes 10, 15, 20, half an hour for your document to upload into the submission portal in Canvas. And that's a real thing. 700, 800 students try and upload all at the same time with the glorious Australian NBN network. Sometimes it falls over. Sometimes Windows decides it's going to do an update on you. Don't leave it till 10 minutes to go to submit. Start submitting an hour beforehand. Because it does take a long time. The other thing is end of day is 23:59, 11:59, not midnight. I have had people coming to me saying, I submitted at 11:59 and 30 seconds. It shouldn't be considered late. It is in the system. The system considers end of day 23:59. But most of the time, things will be due at, say, 5 p.m. Friday, and that's 5 p.m. If it's 5 p.m. and 1 second, it's considered late. Cool. Okay, and the other thing is that some of these submission processes may be a little bit involved. So depending on what you're doing, if it's a hard copy submission, there might be certain things you need, like cover sheets and folders and all sorts of different stuff that you might have to do. You might have to get something bound. In order for you to submit your hard copy, and you'll have to do all of that, get it printed, for example, before it's due, make sure you're on top of that type of stuff. And sometimes with soft copies, you have to submit to this thing called Turnitin, which is a plagiarism checker. Some courses will make you do that before you submit and submit the Turnitin report. That's less common now, is my understanding, but be aware. Oh, and finally, sometimes signatures as well. If you're submitting a group report, you generally need all of the people who worked on it to physically sign the cover sheet, and that might just be a thing you have to organize. Cool. If you miss out on any of these things and you end up submitting late, you lose 10% of the maximum marks for that assignment. Not 10% of what you would have gotten, 10% of what the assignment was worth. And you lose that every day. And that rolls over on the day. That way there's no difference between being 1 second late and being 23 hours late. One day, and then it rolls over and you lose another 10% on the next day. And once it's like 4 days late, you get 0 no matter what. Or there's some rule around that. Don't be 4 days late on an assignment. Cool. So that's sort of all assignment-y stuff. Quiz-wise, there's a few things that, again, get a little bit confusing around online quizzes. I was saying some of them will run with a set time and a set end. The quiz starts at 9. You've got 2 hours. Auto-submit at 11 o'clock. Done. That's the simple way to do it. But to give people some flexibility, some people now run their quizzes a little bit more openly, where maybe it goes live at 9 a.m. Friday morning and you've got until end of day on Sunday to submit it. So you can start it anywhere in that window, but maybe you only have 1 hour to do it once you start it. That's quite common nowadays and a thing that you really need to be aware of. The other one in that scenario is it's due at 11:59 on the Sunday night regardless. So if you started at 11:58 on that Sunday night, you've got 1 minute to do it. You don't get the hour. The hour doesn't roll through, okay? Lots of people get this wrong. Don't be in that boat. Don't do quizzes at 11:59 on a Sunday, but whatever. So be aware of those things. It'll vary course to course. Late start means less time. We've got that. And the other thing is there will be some quizzes that will not let you submit them late. If you do not submit them on time, the submit button goes away and you get 0. Okay? So be aware that that is a thing. Don't think I can submit this quiz late and simply cop a minus 10% penalty. Not necessarily. It depends on the quiz. Different people run this in different ways, but it's entirely possible for that submit button to disappear at 11:59. So, cool. All right, so I always then get this kind of on the other side of it. Why are you being so strict about this? We're first year, first semester students, stressed out of our mind. Why do you have such rigidly enforced rules? And the worst one is sort of you're making this up. And it's not true. One of the things that we are attempting to prepare you for here is industry. Because there are deadlines as an engineer in industry and you meet them or you get fired. And that's just the way that it is. If there's a tender, you call it, a job contract out and different companies are applying for it, or grant applications is the other way, you're applying for a government grant. If you're 1 second late, your submission is considered ineligible, even if you were the best in the world. Ineligible, you're 1 second late, goodbye. And then your company waves goodbye to you as well. So that is definitely a big thing on large projects, but it's also a thing on like smaller scale. If you're meeting with, in a startup, meeting an investor, or maybe just meeting a client or a boss, you know, the same rules apply here. The meeting starts at 11. You have everything in by that time, or don't bother showing up, see you later. And that's what we're prepping you for. Now, we're not going to fire you because, well, we can't fire you just for submitting something late. You know, it's a 10% penalty. Cop it, move on with your life. But that is the way that it works in the real world, and we're trying to get you to that. The other side of it is scale. I can't manage, oh, this person was a couple of minutes late, this person was 20 minutes late, this person was 3 hours late. There's no way for me to be equitable in distributing punishments in this case and waiving it for one person and not waiving it for another person. And where do you draw the line? That there's an equity issue when it comes to this. So the rule is, it's on time or you lose 10% a day, or if in the case of a quiz, it's on time or it's not. And that's why it's like that. Okay, so I hope that sort of makes sense.